batter, for beating women, and really just having a very nasty attitude towards those who live with him. And I sat next to him, and I asked about his daughter. He has 4 boys and a little girl. I said, oh, she's fine. How old now? She's 13. I said, wow, any boyfriends? No! And then all of a sudden, all of the evil started to creep in my head. And then I said to him, sir, do you know that in this country, your daughter is a potential victim of rape at the hands of her teacher? Leymah, stop it. Do you know that she could be raped in her classroom? Leymah, you're making me paranoid. Do you know that sometimes girls her age, when they get raped, most times it's not by strangers. I know you have a whole group of security. It could be, Leymah, stop it. I said, well, you know, right now we're working on this issue and we're trying to recruit men. Count me in. My partner was sitting next to me. He said, you are very evil. I said, I take that as a compliment. We need to bring them, urge them to share our space, and give them reasons to see why we leave our babies, leave our warm beds, and constantly fly or drive from one continent to the other. For too long, we've spoken to ourselves as women. It's time for us to get men involved, from construction workers to politicians, to parliamentarians, to business people, to corporate executives. It's time for us to engage. There is no way that any man in this room or boy in this room can say, I love my mother, I love my daughter, and I love my wife, and fail to raise his voice on issue of rape and sexual violence. A second way forward, knowledge is power. In many communities, women are unaware of the laws and the services available to them. Sustained education campaign is something that we should work on. It's not good enough to advocate for laws. Whilst laws are important, it's equally important to create the awareness about the effectiveness of those laws. In total, the women in the community told us that they're creating awareness and talking to parents of girls and urging them to report rape. They've also formed a partnership, which I think is an effective model, with the police. In their peace huts, community people come and report cases of rape. In that same peace hut, these women have their militants. Those are the people who institute citizens' arrest for men who are accused of raping anyone. And they later turn these men over to the police. And we ask them, so do these people go to court? And they say, well, you know one thing, sometimes they don't make it to court. But we make very sure that once we bring them to this peace hut, all of the community know what they are accused of. And when the police let them go, most times it's difficult for them to live here anymore, so they have to move away. But they are working to address this issue. Justice for women victims of rape and violence may seem far away, but I can say with confidence that women are now open to talking about it, and they are not ashamed, like in time past, to face their perpetrators and say, you did this. Last year, a young woman walked into one of the police stations in Monrovia to ask for the head of the police to release her brother who had been unjustly imprisoned. He invited her to his office, closed the door, at gunpoint, raped her. She left the room and went straight to the head office of the police, reported the case, and got many people involved in the case, and this man was disrobed from the police. She said, I will not be ashamed because I did nothing wrong. He should be ashamed because he took the oath to protect me, but rather decided to use his position to destroy what he had vowed to protect. Those of us that care about humanity need not relent on the fight for justice for women victims. Though the fight seems daunting, it is surmountable. Many of my sisters who protested with us during the civil crisis decided we're not going to pursue justice. We're not going to do anything. We'll leave this to God. Divine justice is good, but divine justice is not the way to end these problems. The speeches made by Secretary of State Kerry and Ban Ki-moon may not have included specifics on justice, but that it got close to personal is the right step in the right direction. As we continue to reflect on the issues of justice for women victims of rape and sexual violence, we must remember the words of Frederick Douglass, and I quote, "Where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where one class feels that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither person nor property will ever be safe," unquote. In conclusion, any nation that fails to protect its women has failed to protect the nation's greatest treasure and assets. Thank you. Thank you. Please have your seats. Thank you. And I'm told that we're supposed to have questions, and they put this chair here because they think I'm an old lady. At 41, I think I'm still good. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
I work with a college conference that helps high schoolers do Model UN, and one of our issues this year is the special session on women's rights and children's rights. Part of the issue is that we feel like some of the kids are too young to talk about things like rape and underage marriage, but I feel like education might be the key at an early age to aware them. What do you feel is too early to talk about these things?
How young do you think kids in this country are when they go on the web and start surfing porn?
Too young.
So if you're young enough to see the action, you're young enough to start the conversation. I don't believe in this thing where people say kids are too young. Kids are very knowledgeable. I have a 3-year-old, and I think she understands the world that I'm in is not the normal. So she came back from school one day and said, I asked her, what did you all do at school today? She said, we talk about what mommies and daddies do. And I said, so what does mommies do? She said, mommies cook, clean, and take care of the children. And daddies drive, and daddies do, and she went on. And I said, but mommy drives. She said, I know, but I didn't tell that to my teacher. At 3, it's better safe than sorry. I'm not going to tell them I'm in an upside-down world. I will go with the flow. The point that I try to make is that even at 3, if she understands that she's not in that normal world, you don't have to be so vivid, but you need to begin the conversation at some point. These last few days and over the weekends, there was this case of rape in this U.S., and everyone was paying attention to the case and was having a conversation. The question I asked some of the Americans here was that, what do we learn from this case? What is the teachable moment for both boys and girls? What can we say we can pick from this? Trust me, children are engaging in things. The culture is teaching children, not just here, but all across the world, that women are made for sex regardless of what they do on a daily basis. And until we really get them to understand that besides the body, we have brains, and sometimes better than the way theirs function. No insult to the men in this room. But we really need to start really telling young people that this world is balanced. And this group of people that you see every day, mommies and aunties and sisters, they are not second-class citizens. You can start from that level. Engage them in understanding, respect for women. Some of the basic things you can try to tell them. I have 2 boys, Arthur and his brother Josh, and I've told them when they're getting married, my present to their wives will be canes. You know canes? In Africa, we use it to whip. And I will wrap it up nicely and give it to my daughter-in-laws. If they ever hit you, we will unwrap it on their bodies. We need to start teaching our sons. Even as a mother, don't ever allow your son to kick you and smile, Jordan, that was not nice. Because as long as Jordan feels, and I'm just using that name loosely, that it's nice to kick his mommy, he goes to daycare and start kicking all of the little girls into middle school, into junior high and high school. And when he's married, if I could kick my mommy and she never stopped me, I have the license to kick any girl in this world. We can start from there. Thank you. Well, Maine is a good crowd. I guess not.
Hi, thank you for visiting us here in Maine. Something that has been very much on my mind is the case you referred to in Steubenville, Ohio, where a young girl was raped. And her 2 of her rapists were found delinquent. They were tried as juveniles. Also very present in my mind was been the 2 rapes that have recently gained a lot of publicity in India, where a Swiss tourist was raped and that young girl was gang raped as well. And I think in the US, we see rape culture as someone else's problem. We don't see it as being a problem in this country. And I agree with you that we need to bring men into the conversation, and that is the key, is that we all need to work together. But how do you have that conversation when many men don't even want to start it?
Talk about their daughters. You know what? You have very powerful women in this country. Cora is here, Gloria Steiner, you name them, Kathy, others in Maine. Many powerful people. And sometimes I wonder, in this day and age, when everyone is teaching, and I tell people this is the century of women. This is the century where, even in our culture, when we were afraid to speak up about issues like FGM and other things, today we are boldly standing up in our communities and declaring. You go to basketball games, people in this country should be appalled that in this century, the century of women, Daughters of this nation still wear skimpy things and cheer men on. That is the beginning of the culture of sexual violence. Nobody can give me any other definition for that. A group of boys play, and a group of very skinny girls come and shake and turn, and and sometimes they fall and break their jawbones, their legs, and everything, all in the name of entertaining these men. This is a culture that must stop. And that is the reason why you have young people like those young men in Ohio thinking no one can conquer us because we are it. We play the game. Now you have the March Madness, NBA season, NFL, Super Bowl, Crazy Bowl, Drunken Bowl. And at the end of all of it, the decoration and the over-sexualizing of sports is getting Beyonce, Shakira, and all of these people to come to this event again to demean women. I have, as an African, sorry, I'm naive to this culture. I have no other explanation to give it. I think until women demand that we are not going to take it anymore, if you can't play football with all girls in panties cheering you, let the football in. As sad as it is, and it's time, my mother used to say, every time we were bad when we were kids, and she was really disciplining us, and you say, P, you will kill me. And she said, bad soul needs bad medicine. It's time for us to be bad. It's time for us to speak up. It's time for us to say no to all of our cultures that continues to put us as women and girls into the second-class position. So imagine all of those boys on the basketball court and the football field. They go out there and the crowd cheers them. And when they go in, maybe you haven't imagined or thought about it, to rest, then the girls come. Here comes the second-class citizens. Here comes our entertainers. Here comes the one we use for our pleasure. That's the only explanation I can give it. And you see, I tell people America is at such an advantage place, a place of advantage. The world takes a lot of lead from things that happens here, whether you know it or not. The movies, the whatever, the music, all find legs and enter our individual continents. We have our own evils. But I'm sure if a lot of the good things and the good people and the good culture of this country was portrayed more by the media, people in other parts of the world will start to sit up. It's unfortunate what we see in India, but observe the difference in India. It was the men who took to the streets also. The case in Ohio, who can say the men? People are upset that you've distorted our football season and you've distorted our football culture. We need to start speaking and start speaking with loud voices. Well, I'm sure if you turn to any man in this room and show him the image of that girl on the internet and ask him, if this was your daughter, what will you do? I have this fun story from Britain. I'm a member of the advisory council. I'm on so many things that I forget what I am. At least I know I'm a mother of 6. But I work with these Girl Scouts, and we went to London where there were 350 of them, and they had different projects. And there's this one very vicious, this child, feisty. You would think that she came from another planet. And she said one of the things that made her sick as a child, every morning there was this newspaper in the local village, in London where every time you open it, the center spread was of a half-naked woman, and they were advertising something. And there was this big company that was responsible, and she went to school with the owner of this company whose daughters were pampered and privileged. And she gathered her colleagues as her yearly campaign for the Girl Scouts, and they asked for a meeting with this man. And these little girls went to his office, and he thought they were going to sell Girl Scout cookies. They got there and asked him, open the center page of several of those papers and say, if this woman was your daughter, how would you feel? And these little girls tell the story that the following Sunday, there was no ad in the center spread of that paper. He never thought about it. My friend Abby Disney gave me a quote the other day and said, the sex, what you will not pay your daughter to do, don't pay another woman to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leymah, for coming. I'm a huge follower, and I've been learning so much from your story. The first time I sat down and I was told that you brought your 2 children, I was thinking, where's Pudu? I felt like thank you for being very honest and sharing your journey with us. On our way to this place, we were discussing with my friends from the Arab Spring to the war in Congo. We were also talking about the digital revolution and how the digital world has stratified human beings. We have people here, when something happens, not even here, even in Kenya, I'm from Kenya, in East Africa, in Asia, when something happens, we're always on Twitter talking about it, and Facebook, and the people whom the action is affecting are not part of the conversation. How then do we build this bridge? One good example is in Somalia recently. There was the journalist, yes, and basically there's a lot of signatures being done, but the people in Somalia were not included in that journey and conversation. How do we bridge these two groups?
You know, one of the problems we have is the technology gap. But I want to say one thing to you, is never wasted effort, any effort that is targeting a group of people somewhere. This is a place, this nation is a nation of great resources, great opportunities, but sometimes very limited access to information of situation on the ground. And I think as young people who are savvy when it comes to technology, what you can do is keep doing what you're doing. Because it's globalizing some of the local issues. It's making people aware. And you just might not know, at the end of the day, someone may decide, I want to do this, I want to do that. But also you can try to find, because I know there are very many women's groups in different parts of the world, different NGOs and civil society organizations that are connected somehow. I know within the African women's movement, there is not a space that you will go and name maybe someone from Somalia who is a powerful woman leader that someone in that space will say, I don't know. And also in Nairobi, I know in Wajir, there is a connection with the women of Somalia. The reason I know that, we just had a group of activists